I've often said that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, Elizabeth Warren's baby, is one of the best things to come out of the Dodd-Frank bill, a bill that didn't do enough after the Great Recession, and a bill that 16 Democrats and Angus King just helped gut. It was weak, and those conservative Democrats chose to make it weaker, and now the Trump administration is trying to go even further in weakening it. They're about to go further because they got their way in a lawsuit. If you recall, when Richard Cordray resigned as the CFPB director at the end of last year to run for governor, he appointed Leanna English as the interim director of the agency per the language in Dodd-Frank. That language said that the interim director could be in place or should be in place until Congress appoints someone new or approves them. Trump used a different statute in his case, the Federal Vacancies Reform Act of 1998, but the court sided with Trump instead of Leanna English in February, which is beyond me. Denying the president's authority to appoint Mr. Mulvaney raises significant constitutional questions, U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly said. Nothing in the statutes prevents Mr. Mulvaney from holding both of these positions, the judge said, referring to Mulvaney's existing job as the federal budget director. Yeah, it's not about him holding both jobs. It's about the interim whatever. But shocker, Timothy Kelly, the judge, was appointed by President Donald Trump just months prior. So now Mulvaney is heading the CFPB despite him saying this about the agency in the past.
There was a time at which you were quite critical of the CFPB, stating that, I've got to get the right page in front of me, but if I paraphrase, that it's a sad, sick joke. Do you still believe that CFPB is a sad, sick joke?
Yes, sir, I do, and I'll be happy to tell you why. It is, to me, sir, one of the most offensive concepts, I think, in a representative government, which is almost completely unaccountable government bureaucracy, government regulatory agency. One of the most frustrating experiences I've had since I've been in Congress is people walking into my office and asking me for help and having me look them in the eye and say, I'm sorry, there's no way under any circumstance that I can help you. And that's what I've been forced to do with the CFPB.
People coming into your office, Mick Mulvaney, or do you mean the legal definition of persons, also known as corporations? Because as I'm sure you are well aware, your top 5 career industry donors include the securities and investment industry and the commercial banking industry at 3 and 4 respectively. And I doubt that there were many constituents coming into your office when you were a representative complaining about the bureaucracy of the CFPB, because while I know this is inconvenient for your narrative, I know this, the CFPB actually helped people, and there's facts to back that up. By the end of Obama's term, the agency had provided $11.4 billion in relief for more than 25 million aggrieved consumers since Congress created the CFPB in the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act. According to the Wall Street Journal, CFPB has handled more than 930,000 consumer complaints on a range of financial services from mortgages and bank accounts to payday loans and virtual currency. Yeah, Mick, I'm sure there were tons of constituents coming into your office and complaining about CFPB bureaucracy. I'm sure of it. When every metric shows it to be a significant success, except for Wall Street's metric, which is the only one that you care about in all honesty, which is why he is essentially destroying the CFPB. The CFPB, while having political appointments, yes, to head them, was supposed to be at least a little bit independent of Congress and the White House, a lot independent, if you look at it in a different way. It was established as an independent agency funded by the Fed. It's supposed to be, at least in theory, free of the corruption that has infected the executive and legislative branches of our government on the federal level. But not under Mulvaney's watch. No, no, no. The Trump administration wants to limit a federal regulator's independence in policing the consumer finance industry, the last salvo by the White House to roll back Obama-era oversight put in place after the financial crisis. Mick Mulvaney, acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, on Monday asked Congress to pursue sweeping changes, giving the executive and legislative branches control over the Bureau's regulations, leadership, and budget. Major CFPB rules would need congressional approval, for instance, and the CFPB's director would answer directly to the president instead of being fully independent. Its funding, which currently comes from the Federal Reserve, would be handled by Congress. In January, Mr. Mulvaney, who also serves as White House budget chief, asked for zero funds for the agency's activities in the second quarter of fiscal 2018, saying it could draw on reserves. So that's Mulvaney's goal, for the CFPB, an agency that actually works for people right now under this corrupt system, to be put under the oversight of that corrupt system. Top-notch stuff. It's just a part of the series of rollbacks that Mulvaney has aggressively sought as the head of the CFPB. In his 4 short months as acting director, he's relaxed restrictions on loan sharks, ended an investigation into a company that, coincidentally, donated thousands of dollars to his previous congressional campaigns, decided to take a closer look into whether or not Wells Fargo really needs to pay out millions over alleged mortgage abuses, pulled back from an investigation into Equifax, and told Senator Elizabeth Warren to pipe down and let him destroy the agency in peace. That is a reference to Elizabeth Warren's letter that she sent to Mulvaney when he was working to deregulate payday lenders, those predatory lenders, co-signed by Senators Jeff Merkley and Richard Blumenthal, as well as Keith Ellison and Maxine Waters, interestingly, in the House. They were specifically asking about donations and meetings with payday lenders before making the decision to deregulate, which I, of course, love. But Mick Mulvaney, is outraged that you would impugn his character. God forbid. He's a gentleman of the House of Representatives. I reject your insinuation, repeated 3 times in as many pages, that my actions as acting director are based on considerations other than a careful examination of the law and facts particular to any matter. Civil discourse rests upon our reciprocal understanding that no matter how strongly we may disagree on matters of policy, we are motivated by principle and our mutual desire to serve the American people to the best of our abilities. Prior to receiving your letter, I never would have thought to consider, for instance, whether your vote against repealing the Bureau's arbitration rule was influenced by campaign donations you may have received from trial lawyers or other parties who stood to gain financially from the rule. Perhaps I should reconsider. Actually, it's pretty easy not to make that accusation because Elizabeth Warren gets almost all of her donations from small dollars. You, on the other hand, did not, and you're using this gentleman of the House in our civil discourse. What a smug individual. But really, these are the consequences of having Republicans like this in power. I guess all we can do right now is put pressure on Congress not to approve this, because I fear that the changes could be irreversible in a corrupt Congress like this. Making the CFPB political would be awful, and irreversible changes like this could mean another crash.